People of Reddit, what's the stupidest thing you've done as a child out of curiosity? Stomped on a cactus barefoot because my cousin told me it was a time machine and that's how it worked. It wasn't a time machine. This is the greatest thing here. I wanted to see if your tongue could actually get stuck to ice like in cartoons. My dad found me crouching with my tongue glued to the bottom shelf of the freezer. I think a bit of my tongue was left on that shelf after I pulled myself away. If you pour hot water, or really any water, on someone who gets their tongue stuck of ice, it freezes it. When I was 5, I tried to see if I could fit my head through the bars going up the stairs. I got my head in but couldn't get back out. My mom called the fire department. They pried me out and gave me a teddy bear. Now I know how to get a free teddy bear. I stuck a fork in a light socket to see if it would actually shock me. It did. Poured water down a hive of wasps when I was 6. Thought they looked thirsty because the water droplets I gave them around the entrance all got sucked up. Turns out they were just trying to keep their home free of moisture. My grandfather, who was gardening at the time, saw the cloud that came up. He grabbed me and ran inside. I still got stung 10 plus times though. My sister, a year younger, who had been watching me, went inside and closed the door the moment I had poured the cup. She is much smarter than I am. She still remembers the way the wasps slammed against the door trying to follow us in. There was this little hole on the sidewalk covered by metal square. There was some ants that made little hills in there. A neighborhood girl poured water or soda in there and covered it to drown them. About a week later, the ants adapted and made like apartments out of the mud. I was left alone in the car for a few minutes. I loosened the handbrake. While the car was located on a hill, my grandpa had to run for the car and make it stop. If it makes you feel any better, I once pressed the cigarette lighter of my dad's car into my thumb to see how hot it was. The answer was pretty freaking hot. Stole something small out of a store to see in what type of trouble I'd get into. Turns out I was young enough for them to simply tell me to leave. I stole a lychee from this grocery store and my dad caught me on our way home. He made me return it and apologize. I cried a lot. It was all very dramatic. Cringe. I sat on train tracks, seeing if I'd be fast enough to dodge it. After 30 minutes, I got bored, though. Might have saved my life. Reminds me of a stupid idea. See, you can't crawl under a train because of the space between the wheels. So, I sometimes have this call of the void thought of, could I let a train drive over me and be unharmed? So happy I didn't have that as a kid. I just climbed on the roof and brought my cousin along too. I smashed one of my fingers with a rubber mallet just to see what would happen. Pain happened. Pain happened. I'm sensing a theme develop in this thread. A classic. Stuck my head through the banister on the stairs. I got stuck. Was stuck there until my uncle woke up from his nap and saw me while he was walking down the stairs. If he wasn't an athlete, I don't think he would have been able to pull the metal rods apart the way he did. And of course I told my mom I got my head through, so I thought I could get it out. I ate a cigarette as a kid because I didn't understand the concept of smoking, but I regularly saw my dad putting cigarettes in his mouth. So, one time when he was in another room, he had his pack on the coffee table and, well, I was hungry. Ate some ants because I saw Baloo the bear do that in the Jungle Book. I donned blackface because of some older cartoons. I was 5. The family friends I did it for were black. Plus side, they liked my impression of those racist crows that appeared in a bunch of Disney movies. Tried jumping over a waist-high fence. Should have been easy. Went for the jump. Made it over but in the process kneed myself in the face and knocked myself out. I don't know how long I was out for. I rubbed deep heat all over my penis. Then went downstairs and sat at the family dining table to eat dinner. I ate my dinner very quickly that day. Hot sausage, you're doing it wrong. I tried to change the TV channel remotely with a butter knife. I must have been sitting on the real remote when I picked up the knife and the channel changed. I was convinced it was some kind of crazy electronic interference I didn't understand, so I tried to change the channel again with the knife. I thought if I concentrated really hard it would work. It didn't. This is so funny because the rest of the stories are like I put an entire electric plug in my mouth and died, but yours is just pure idiocy. I love it. I petted a dead rotting rat. but it was out of love. I started messing around with a deer's skeleton I found. I had never seen bones so big that you were allowed to touch, and I wanted to bring it home and make my room into a museum. Unfortunately, my mom didn't appreciate me walking into the house with a dead deer's leg. We were having a penny race on my friend's parents' hallway wall, pressing a penny flat against the wallpaper and running it across the wall with a finger. My penny slipped and fell directly behind the little plug-in night light, onto the prongs. The lights in the entire house flickered and went dark. Blue electricity spidered up the wallpaper and my friend unplugged the night light. The lights came back on and where the electricity had been was burned. Black wallpaper in the same design. They were grounded and I couldn't come over for weeks. When I was a kid I liked to put coins in my mouth. Like a lot of children I liked the metallic taste. My mother would always stop me when she caught me doing it. One day I was home basically alone. My mom was at work and my dad was asleep as he worked the night shift. I was in my bedroom and put a quarter in my mouth. The quarter fell over my windpipe and I started to choke. I remember being scared because I couldn't breathe. Not sure if I could make it to my dad's room to wake him up. And thinking mom was right. At the last second as the lights were starting to dim, my gag reflex kicked in and I coughed up the quarter. I sat there looking at it. I vowed from that day forward I would never put coins in my mouth again. I didn't tell my mom about it for years. Oh man, I swallowed an Australian $2 coin while I was waiting for the ice cream truck once. It didn't get stuck in my windpipe or anything, but because my mum had warned me so many times I was worried I was going to die with it in my stomach. I believed that everything that was red tasted like strawberries. I find out that I was wrong after I ate some red wool. I was maybe 5. I was making instant ramen for myself for the first time without my mom's supervision. I love fire, so I thought it would be cool to play with the Shin-Ram iron plastic wrapper and the fire from my stove. I knew the sink was nearby just in case. Plastic gets lit and I'm about to bring it to the sink to watch it burn, and it drops onto the floor. I sang happy birthday to the small fire on the floor and it didn't go out until my mom appeared shortly after and doused it with a bowl of water. The floor ended up having burn marks until we remodeled it when I was 12. Put my whole hand on a stove to see how hot it gets. It gets really hot. I like milk. I like Coke. Let's make some magic. Proceeds to vomit for the next 10 minutes. I'd forgotten, but I did this too. Also milk and orange juice because I thought it would make an orange milkshake. Yuck. You know those firecrackers that have strings on both ends and you pull them in opposite directions at the same time and it makes the thing in the middle explode? I loved those as a kid and was playing with them outside one day when I suddenly had the bright idea that I could prank the mailman with one of them. So, I tied it through our mailbox and made sure it was secure and then tried it by opening the mailbox. Sure enough, it worked and the thing exploded and I thought it was hilarious. So I set it up again and then waited. He came around at the same time every day and I even knew his name. So when I saw him coming down the street I ran inside and hid by peeking out the front window blinds. He walks up on our porch, goes to open the mailbox, and stops. I see him inspect the mailbox, then back away slowly and just walk away. Before I even had a chance to go outside and figure out what happened, I assumed it didn't work or he just didn't have any mail for us that day. A cop car comes screeching down our street and stops in front of my house and an officer runs up to our door and starts pounding. I was scared as heck, but it was a cop, so I opened the door and the cop pulls me outside and asks me what in the heck is going on, while pointing at the mailbox. I try as best as I can to explain myself and repeatedly mention it's a firecracker as I'm freaking out and on the verge of tears. The mailman shows back up and he and the cop full on verbally berate me over stuff like this isn't funny. It looked like it was wired up like a bomb. Tampering with mailboxes is a federal offense. You're lucky you're just a little kid or you'd be going to prison. They then forced me to open the mailbox and set the firecracker off. But by then I was so traumatized and upset that I did it as slowly as possible, which somehow prevented the firecracker going off as one of the strings just slipped out of it. The cop and mailman then left and I untied the rest of the firecracker from the mailbox and then went back inside and hid in shame. The mailman was never once friendly to me again after that and I've lived with the shame of it ever since. I heard that if you stuck a knife in the toaster it would explode or something, so one day I decided to try it. I touched the top of the toast, not the metal, scraped it around a bit on the crust, and nothing happened. So I tried it again, and again, and again. So for a couple months after that I would use that method to see how toasted the bread was. I stopped after I saw my dad pull the lever up manually, causing the toast to kind of fly up in the air. You know, I thought that looks cool as heck, so I switched to that method. That was way more fun cause I was obsessed with how high up in the air I could make the toast go. And if I caught both pieces before they hit the ground I won. So basically I spent a couple months playing Operation with my own life on the line. I'm not sure I deserved to be that insanely lucky. Cut the power cord of a fan with a pair of scissors. There was a flash. Next thing I knew I was in the hospital. I was the kid that stuck my fingers in fans. Luckily my parents knew to keep them on low power settings. When I was a kid, my family would go on camping trips during the summer. My dad always brought a big kerosene lamp, which was very bright, but it would heat up enough to burn flesh on contact. My dad told me many times not to touch the lamp. I touched the lamp. My dad sat in silence across the campsite and watched me touch the lamp. I turned pale, started sweating, and put on my best poker face. Dad, remember how you told me not to touch the lamp? I fell asleep that night with my fingers in a cup of ice. This is one of my dad's funniest memories. I once touched a spinning blade with the tip of my nail to see how fast it was spinning. Luckily only lost the tip of my nail and not my finger. No idea what I was thinking. Row, hahaha. For me I tried inhaling small stones and it got stuck in my nose for quite some time. It got really serious that I needed an ENT doctor to remove it. I let my friend punch me in the face once, just to see what it was like to get punched in the face. Ate a leaf off the ground because I was wondering why we eat lettuce but not leaves. I figured that one out pretty fast. I ran my thumb along my dad's shaving razor just to see if it would cut me. Surprise surprise, it did. I regretted my decision immediately. Filled the locks on my parents' cars with twigs so they couldn't go anywhere. They wouldn't take me to the park, so I wouldn't let them go anywhere then. Cost them a pretty penny to get them all out too. My sister did this one but blamed it on someone else. I wanted to know what it felt like if you stood on your bed, jumped off of it, and landed on your knees without landing on your feet first. It felt like I almost broke both of my legs. I was a pretty stupid 8-year-old. I drank an entire bottle of cough medicine because I wanted to know if it would kill me. I was a 30-pound weak kid and Benadryl made me pass out for an entire day. My parents still don't know, and when I passed out I was sure I was dying. My brother told my sister that chewable children's Tylenol was candy, and gave her the whole bottle. Luckily our neighbor had ipecac. Plugged in a wet extension cord into a wet extension outlet, short the power to the house and almost electrocuted myself. Used a metal kebab skewer to touch the pilot spark on a kitchen hob. The shock was great enough that I thought my friend next to me had punched me really hard in the shoulder. I turned and had a go at him, shortly after realizing I'd just shocked myself. Haha, I could just imagine your friend's confused thoughts. First you get yourself shocked and then you immediately turn on him. Hilarious. Getting electrocuted is sure a B. I know that feeling as well. Ain't fun. Me and my friend grabbed garbage bags and climbed up the roof to jump off and see if they'd work as parachutes. They didn't, but I think it's cause we needed more height. LOL. Aim for the bushes. I touched one of the cigarette lighters found in cars after pushing it in several times and thinking it wasn't working to find out what the coils feel like. Well, they feel hot. 32. Did this the other day. A joker of an airline host is said to keep all baggage and children under the seat in front of you. My parents are dongs so I climbed under a chair in the plane. My uncle who lived with my grandparents had a tobacco addiction. He used to keep bundles of it in his room's bedside drawer and chew it all the time. I, a 10-year-old girl at the time, was very fascinated by it somehow and wanted look cool chewing tobacco. When no one was in the room, I sneaked, took a bundle and emptied it in my mouth. Now of course 10-year-old me didn't know that the tobacco juice should be spat out and not swallowed. So I swallowed the whole thing after chewing it for some time. A few minutes later, the effects kicked in and my head started spinning so bad. I ran to the living room couch and crashed. Lay there for the rest of the day. I couldn't even lift my head up without feeling like throwing up and giddy. My dad and grandmother thought I was unwell and were very concerned. They didn't know what this little crap's done to herself. My grandma suggested to eat something after a few hours and brought me rice and yogurt, Indian comfort food for sick people. I somehow managed to eat it, while still feeling like crap. Suddenly, my stomach started churning and I felt the yogurt and rice making its way up. Ran to the washroom and emptied my insides. In the end, a glob of tobacco also came up. Felt much better afterwards. My parents still don't know about it and my grandma passed away a few years back, so she never will. I was a teen but I shot myself through the foot with a homemade blowgun to see if it could pierce flesh. Went all the way through. You must have some amazing lung capacity to send a projectile through your foot. I glued the tips of my thumb and index finger with super glue. I had a very large, heavy head when I was younger. We went on a hiking holiday and were walking across a beach with rock pools. Me being the curious child I was, I kneeled down beside a pool and looked over to see what I could find. Next thing I know, my giant head overbalanced my 6-year-old body and I slid headfirst into the pool. Luckily my dad came and pulled me out before I drowned and wrapped me up in spare clothes. Saw some interesting sea life while I was under there though. Certainly satisfied my curiosity. Shaved part of an eyebrow because I thought I had a unibrow. Still won't grow back right. When I was younger, me and my parents were at the zoo. We had been wandering around for an hour and then we came across this empty enclosure. My parents decided to frick with me and say that there was an invisible snake in the enclosure and you could tell because the grass was moving. Of course, my dumbass believed this, not understanding that it was the wind. My parents said they'd adopt it for me. So, of course, I then went to school on Monday telling everyone I had adopted an invisible snake. When I was 5ish we were on a road trip to Florida and my parents stopped at a art decor shop and I sat in the car waiting for them with AC. Eventually I wanted to leave the car so I just locked the doors because that's what you did, right? Well, the keys were in the car so we waited like an hour for AAA to arrive to unlock our car. You have been visited by the hangover papa. Comment, do a recover, papa, and you will never suffer from hangover again. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.